Welcome the anointed ones. The truth doesn't knock before it enters. It breaks doors, flips tables, and drags hidden deals into daylight. For years, a powerful man thought he could play God with gold. He moved people like chess pieces, thinking influence could outsmart prophecy. He wasn't just wealthy. He was untouchable by design, with lawyers for armor and lies for breakfast. And yet, as it always happens in divine irony, the one who built walls around your destiny just tripped over his own foundation. There's a strange law in the universe that no billionaire ever truly studies. Money has a short attention span when it's being used against a divine purpose. It's like trying to bribe gravity. It might delay the fall, but it can't cancel it. This man, with all his power, resources, and connections, tried to do the impossible, to buy time against truth itself. But truth is a terrible business partner. It doesn't negotiate, and it never forgets a debt. You see, while he was out there paying others to block your path, orchestrating whispers, sabotaging deals, and planting stumbling blocks, he didn't realize he was also funding his own exposure. Every dollar spent against you became a spiritual receipt that heaven stamped pending judgment. The irony? He turned your life into a case study for divine justice, a public example of how wealth can build empires but can't buy alignment. And now, that same man, once seen as invincible, is unraveling faster than a cheap designer suit. His secrets are spilling in real time, his allies are defecting, and his confidence has turned into confusion. Because when heaven decides it's time to reveal what's been done in darkness, it doesn't need your help. It just presses play. The funniest part? He thought he was the main character in your downfall story. He didn't know he was just an extra in your redemption arc. Overpaid, overconfident, and now overexposed. This isn't revenge, it's revelation. And what's coming next will prove that when God writes your comeback, even your enemies end up sponsoring the trailer. Number 1, he mistook wealth for authority over destiny. That was his first and final mistake. He truly believed that money could bend outcomes, that influence could override divine order, that people and circumstances could be bought like property. For a while it seemed to work. He made calls, paid people off, and watched doors close in your face like he was conducting an orchestra. He walked around with the confidence of a man who thought the universe had a price tag. But destiny doesn't take bribes and purpose doesn't fear power. The kind of arrogance he carried is the kind that blinds a person from reality. He thought control meant ownership, but control without conscience is self-destruction in disguise. Every time he used his money to block you, he wasn't stopping your progress. He was signing spiritual documents against himself. Because the moment a man uses his wealth to interfere with divine timing, he steps into a territory money can't protect him from. What he never understood is that divine purpose runs on a law higher than human economy. You can't pay your way around what's written. When something is destined, it has a gravitational pull. Even the obstacles are part of the plan. While he was busy paying others to sabotage your steps, God was using his interference as training for your authority. What he meant for delay was actually shaping your discipline. What he thought would humiliate you ended up refining your resilience. Now the energy he once used to build his false empire is turning against him. The very same power he used to control others is beginning to expose him. It's not coincidence, it's consequence. Because when you try to play God with gold, eventually heaven repossesses the throne you borrowed. And now, he's learning the truth no one around him dared to tell. Wealth without wisdom becomes weakness. Influence without integrity eventually implodes. His fall isn't random. It's divine correction. He tried to override what was already written in your favor, and now he's standing in the ruins of his own rebellion. Money gave him access to everything except grace, and that's the one currency he'll wish he never ran out of. Number two, he funded his own exposure without even realizing it. Every move he made against you was a payment into his own downfall. Each person he paid to slander your name, every favor he exchanged to block your path, every lie he sponsored, all of it became evidence that would one day speak louder than his silence ever could. He thought he was buying control, but what he really bought was surveillance. Heaven was keeping records in real time, and his transactions were testifying against him. That's the irony of manipulation. It always starts as a plan and ends as a confession. He believed he was being strategic, outsmarting you and maintaining power. He had no idea he was building the very stage his exposure would play out on. Every document, message, and favor became a breadcrumb trail leading straight to his undoing. His money didn't protect him, it documented him. His own resources turned into witnesses, and the same people he paid to hide the truth are now the ones leaking it. This is the kind of poetic justice that can't be staged by humans. It's the natural law of consequence. What you use to deceive will eventually reveal you. His pride convinced him that he could outwit divine intelligence, but money doesn't erase evidence in the spiritual realm. It multiplies it. For every scheme he funded, heaven wrote an invoice. And now, all those receipts have come due. He didn't realize that destiny doesn't lose track of what was stolen or delayed. It collects, quietly, patiently. And when the time comes, it releases exposure like a flood, not as revenge, but as restoration. The truth that was buried under his money is now resurfacing with interest. The same influence he used to build his reputation is the same influence now collapsing under the weight of truth. He thought he was paying people to stop you, but he was really financing a divine investigation. Every secret meeting, every cover-up, every lie told in confidence, all of it was logged, timed, and stored for this very moment. And now, as his world unravels, it's not because someone betrayed him. It's because his own actions turned against him. He didn't just pay for your pain, he prepaid for his own exposure. Number three, the universe allowed his power to peak so his fall could be public. That's how divine justice works. It waits until the illusion is complete before it breaks it. If he had been exposed too early, people would have pitied him, doubted you, or dismissed the truth. But now, at the height of his wealth, status, and image, his collapse is a broadcast. It's a living announcement that everything built on manipulation eventually caves in on itself. His exposure isn't random timing, it's deliberate design. He thought his success was a sign of divine favor, but it was really a setup for divine exposure. When heaven wants to make a lesson unforgettable, it lets pride grow to its loudest point before silencing it. That's why he seemed untouchable for so long. He wasn't being protected, he was being positioned. His platform had to be high enough for the fall to be seen by everyone who once believed in his illusion. Now the same people who applauded him are witnessing his unraveling, and that's not coincidence. That's consequence made visible. The truth is, false power needs a stage to feel real. He built his image on control, lies, and fear, and for a time, it looked unshakable. But anything not rooted in truth carries an expiration date. The moment truth arrives, the stage collapses, and every actor is forced to break character. That's what's happening now. His influence, once envied, is turning into embarrassment. The same networks that praised him are cutting ties. The same hands that accepted his bribes are now exposing his secrets. He's learning that when divine timing shifts, protection turns into exposure overnight. There's nothing accidental about his fall being public. The world had to see the contrast, how far corruption can rise, and how fast it falls when truth decides to speak. It's not humiliation for sport, it's revelation for clarity. People needed to see that his success was never a blessing. It was borrowed time. His peak wasn't a reward. It was evidence being gathered. Now the truth is collecting interest, and the exposure is louder than any defense he could craft. He thought he was winning, but he wasn't rising. He was being raised high enough for everyone to witness what happens when ego tries to compete with divine order. Number 4, he was never really competing with you. He was at war with what you represented. His ego couldn't handle the fact that your rise was written before his wealth even existed. It wasn't personal, it was spiritual. He saw your progress, your grace, your persistence, and somewhere deep inside, it enraged him. Not because you wronged him, but because your existence reminded him that there are still things money can't manufacture: favor, authenticity, and divine backing. His pride couldn't process that truth, so he redirected his frustration toward you. He wasn't trying to stop you, he was trying to edit God's script. When a person tries to interfere with something divinely authored, they enter a dangerous kind of delusion. Pride makes them believe they're rewriting the story, but in reality, they're just adding footnotes to their own destruction. Every move he made against you was really a move against the blueprint heaven designed. He was tampering with structure he didn't build, foundations he didn't lay, and timing he didn't create. That's why nothing he did could last. He was working against divine architecture. What's divine cannot be dethroned by what's man-made. He could throw money, power, and influence into the mix, but the design remained intact. God's blueprint doesn't bend for arrogance. It exposes it. So while he thought he was blocking your progress, he was actually accelerating his exposure. Every plot, every false accusation, every strategic delay was him digging deeper into the hole his pride created. He underestimated how costly it is to fight what's sacred. When you go against divine order, you don't just lose influence, you lose alignment. That's what's happening to him now. His name is losing credibility, his allies are scattering, and his stability is fading, because pride always bankrupts a man before the truth does. He could have chosen humility, but he chose competition with creation itself. He could have aligned with destiny, but he tried to alter it. And now his empire is cracking. Not because you fought back, but because he fought the will of God. No one wins when they wage war against what was already written. The blueprint doesn't break. It simply waits for the builder to fall away. Number 5, his wealth bought silence, but it couldn't buy peace. For a long time it looked like he had everything under control. No one dared to speak against him, and every potential threat was quickly paid off or removed. He hid behind luxury, influence, and carefully crafted perfection. People called him powerful, but power without peace is just pressure disguised as success. The truth is, he was living in a constant state of spiritual noise. His money could keep others quiet, but it couldn't silence the war inside his own mind. Every scandal he covered, every lie he paid to keep hidden, became a ghost that followed him home. The world saw a confident man. Heaven saw a restless soul. It's the curse of corruption. You can pay for comfort, but you can't purchase rest. The more he tried to suppress the truth, the louder it got in his own conscience. Every time he closed a deal in the dark, his spirit lost another piece of light. That's why he started losing control, not in public at first, but privately, in sleepless nights, paranoia, and an emptiness that no amount of luxury could fill. He misunderstood the difference between silence and peace. Silence is temporary, peace is eternal. Silence can be bought, but peace must be earned through truth. He spent fortunes trying to manage perception, but perception is fragile. One rumor can crack it, one witness can shatter it, one truth can destroy it completely. Peace, on the other hand, doesn't depend on who's talking, it depends on who's clean. And he was far from clean. Now the same silence he paid for has turned into isolation. The people he controlled are keeping their distance. The same hush money that once bought loyalty is now being used as evidence. He's trapped inside the echo chamber of his own deceit, realizing that money can build comfort but not character, control narratives but not destiny. He thought he was untouchable, but you can't buy freedom from your own mind. You can silence others, but you can't silence the truth that lives inside you. His wealth became his prison, his comfort became his cage, and his peace, the one thing he couldn't counterfeit, was the price he never expected to pay. Number 6. Every gate he closed became a detour to greater ground. He truly believed he was stopping something, cutting off your access and delaying your progress. To him, power meant control, and control meant he could dictate who rises and who stays still. But destiny doesn't need his permission to move. When he shut one door, heaven simply shifted the path beneath your feet. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like delay was preparation in disguise. That's the part people never understand. When you're chosen, blockages become blueprints. Every no, every betrayal, every door slammed in your face creates a new opening that wouldn't have existed otherwise. While he was busy celebrating the gates he thought he locked, God was building a back road to blessings he couldn't interfere with. The moment he said, "You'll never make it," the divine response was, "Watch this." He was working against a system that's wired to turn obstacles into opportunity. Every move he made against you actually pushed you closer to purpose. His denial forced you to innovate. His rejection strengthened your faith. His manipulation sharpened your discernment. You didn't rise in spite of him, you rose because of him. The same doors he shut taught you to build your own. That's how chosen ones evolve. Resistance doesn't break them, it refines them. What he called a win was really him assisting your transformation without knowing it. God has a way of using an enemy's strategy as material for your success. Every time he tried to block your light, he made it more visible. Every attempt to stop your progress became another reason for divine acceleration. You were never being delayed. You were being upgraded in silence. Now he's realizing too late that all the energy he poured into stopping you only strengthened you. The more he resisted, the more unstoppable you became. The very gates he locked are the proof that he recognized your potential before the world did. And now, the path you're walking on is higher, wider and stronger than the one he tried to block. He thought he buried your progress, but all he did was plant it deeper, and that's why your growth is impossible to ignore. Number 7. He didn't just attack you, he disrespected his own assignment. Every person comes into this world with a divine purpose, a specific role in the grand design. Some are meant to uplift, some to guide, some to simply not get in the way of what's sacred. His calling might have been to help, to protect, or to witness your growth with humility. But pride made him forget who he was, and why he was placed in your path. Instead of cooperating with the plan, he tried to compete with it. He turned a divine opportunity into a personal vendetta. When a person abuses the position they've been given, they don't just lose favor, they lose direction. He was supposed to add to the mission, not sabotage it. But his ego convinced him that control was better than contribution. The moment he used his influence to harm, he crossed a line that no amount of wealth or status could fix. Because in the spiritual realm, assignments are sacred. When you misuse them, you don't just delay others, you dismantle your own destiny. He thought he was punishing you, but he was actually disqualifying himself. Every plot against you was a rejection of his purpose. Instead of growing through his position, he turned it into poison. He forgot that his role in your story was meant to refine him too. Helping you might have opened new blessings for him, but trying to hurt you closed every door meant for his own growth. When you turn your hands against someone you were meant to serve, those same hands start losing what they once held. That's why his life feels off balance now. You can't fight divine order and still expect peace. He traded his destiny for the thrill of dominance. He exchanged long-term favor for short-term control. And now he's realizing that you were never his enemy. You were his test. Failing that test cost him more than he imagined. He didn't just go against you. He rebelled against heaven's design. Every attack on your purpose was a strike against his own calling. And now the same divine assignment he ignored is standing as witness, reminding him that power without purpose is just destruction, dressed in authority. Number 8, his empire was built on fear, not foundation. For years, he confused intimidation with influence. He thought the trembling of others meant respect, when in truth, it was just survival. Fear kept people around him, not loyalty. He controlled through silence, ruled through threats, and maintained power by making others believe they were powerless. But any kingdom built on fear eventually turns on its king. Because fear doesn't create loyalty, it breeds resentment. And resentment, once awakened, has no mercy. He mistook compliance for devotion. People didn't follow him because they believed in him. They followed because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. That kind of leadership is hollow. It looks solid on the surface, but it's rotting underneath. The meetings, the partnerships, the public praise, all of it was an act of self-preservation. They weren't applauding him out of admiration. They were appeasing him out of fear. The moment they sensed his grip weakening, they stopped pretending. Now the same people who used to flatter him are stepping forward with evidence, receipts, and regret. A structure built on fear is like a house made of glass. It may shine for a while, but it shatters under truth. He built his empire by manipulating people into silence. But silence is fragile. It breaks at the first sound of exposure. And once one person speaks, others follow. The chain of fear collapses. And suddenly, the man who once terrified everyone becomes the one everyone is ready to expose. He's discovering that respect and fear are two different currencies. Respect multiplies over time. Fear depreciates the moment power fades. The very thing he used to control others has now isolated him. No one's protecting him anymore, because the fear that kept them loyal has turned into freedom. They don't owe him silence. They owe themselves release. Now his so-called empire is cracking from the inside out. The walls that once echoed his commands are now filled with whispers of betrayal. What was built through manipulation is being dismantled through truth. And the collapse isn't tragic, it's justice. Because power maintained through fear isn't power at all. It's insecurity in a crown. And when truth enters the room, fear-built empires always fall first. Number 9. The ones he paid to block you became his downfall. He believed loyalty could be purchased, that silence could be secured with cash, and that fear would keep people bound forever. But loyalty built on money has no roots. It lasts only as long as the payments do. Once the power shifts, so does the allegiance. And now the very same people he paid to delay you are the ones testifying against him. What he thought was control was actually dependence on people who were never truly with him, only with his money. That's the hidden flaw in every corrupt system. The same greed that keeps it alive is the same greed that kills it. The people he used as pawns were never loyal. They were opportunists waiting for the highest bidder. As soon as the divine tide turned and truth started rising, their survival instincts kicked in. Betrayal became their insurance policy. They realized that the man who once seemed invincible was now disposable, and self-preservation replaced obedience. He failed to see that when a divine reversal begins, betrayal multiplies like wildfire. Heaven doesn't need to strike directly. It lets human nature do the work. Fear makes people talk. Guilt makes them confess. And desperation makes them switch sides. The same mouths that once spread lies about you are now spilling secrets about him, not out of integrity, but out of panic. Every hidden deal, every bribe, every plot he thought was buried is now being dragged into daylight by the very hands that helped create it. It's poetic, really. The trap he built for you became the stage for his exposure. He paid for deception, but he forgot that corruption always carries fine print. All participants may testify when convenient. Those who sold their loyalty to him never planned to stay. They were waiting for the moment it was safer to betray him than to serve him. That moment has come. Now, the circle he trusted most has turned into a courtroom of witnesses. His loyal soldiers are giving statements, his allies are negotiating deals, and his empire of manipulation is eating itself alive. The money that once silenced them is now worthless, because divine justice doesn't pay in currency. It pays in truth, and truth always collects its debt. Number 10. His reputation was a costume, not a character. For years, he perfected the art of performance, smiling in public, donating in front of cameras, and crafting the illusion of goodness so carefully that even he started to believe it. People saw a man of success, influence, and generosity, but what they didn't see was the machinery behind it all, the calculated charm, the rehearsed humility, and the desperate need to appear flawless. Everything about his image was scripted, built for applause, not truth. His good name was never earned, it was engineered. He used philanthropy as camouflage, not compassion. Every kind gesture came with strings attached. Every donation had a hidden motive, the luxury, the prestige, the media presence. It was all a distraction from the reality that his power was hollow. He didn't build character, he built a stage, and everyone who played a part in his world was unknowingly helping him maintain the illusion. But illusions are expensive to keep up. They drain energy, resources, and integrity. And when the truth finally demands payment, the entire act collapses. Now, the cracks are showing. The mask that once impressed the world is slipping faster than he can fix it. The public smile is fading, the confidence is crumbling, and the panic he used to hide behind charm is leaking through every gesture. You can always tell when a person's reputation is borrowed. It starts to deteriorate the moment truth enters the room. His image was a rental, and the lease has expired. The same media that once praised him is now questioning him. The same people who once defended him are quietly distancing themselves, because a costume can only fool the world for so long before it starts to tear at the seams. His downfall isn't just about exposure, it's about authenticity, reclaiming its place. For too long he weaponized perception to control narratives, but perception doesn't survive truth. And now, what's left of him isn't power, it's panic. Because when a man spends his life building an image instead of a soul, exposure doesn't just strip him of influence, it strips him of identity. The costume is gone, and without it, he's forced to face the one thing he's avoided his entire life: himself. Number 11. God let him play Pharaoh until he drowned in his own Red Sea. That's the thing about divine timing. It doesn't rush to prove a point. It waits until pride finishes building its own trap. He had every chance to stop, to change, to soften his heart, but power made him deaf to warnings. He saw your elevation as a threat, and your purpose as something he could control. Like Pharaoh, he thought he could dictate who moves forward and who stays behind. He forgot that when God is leading someone out of bondage, no earthly force can chain them in place. He hardened his heart because control was his comfort. He couldn't stand the idea that someone chosen by God could rise without his permission. So he fought, plotted, and positioned himself as a gatekeeper to your freedom. But what he didn't understand was that the very resistance he created was setting the stage for his downfall. God let him feel powerful, not because he was, but because every move of pride had to be fully displayed before the reversal began. Heaven doesn't expose too early. It waits until arrogance becomes undeniable. When the moment of crossing came, everything shifted. The same environment he once used to trap you became the setting of his own defeat. The sea that split for you refused to obey him. That's how divine order works. What saves the chosen destroys the oppressor. Deliverance and destruction can happen in the same moment, depending on which side of the divine line you stand on. And when that line was drawn, he discovered too late that his power had limits, and his influence had no protection against divine will. No weapon was needed, no confrontation, just timing. Divine reversals don't roar, they arrive. They let the arrogant march deeper into their illusion until truth pulls the ground from under them. That's what happened to him. He wasn't defeated by an enemy. He was swallowed by his own pride. His story is a warning dressed as a downfall. God didn't destroy him out of vengeance. He simply allowed him to reach the point where his own ego became his executioner. The Red Sea didn't chase him. It just closed when its purpose was fulfilled. Number 12. The more he tried to humiliate you, the more he documented his failure. Every public attack, every whisper campaign, every fake expose was a receipt, not of your weakness, but of his fear. What he called putting you in your place was actually him revealing how deeply your light disturbed his darkness. The more he tried to drag your name, the clearer it became that you were never beneath him. You were beyond his reach. He mistook his platform for power, not realizing that power without purity always self-destructs on camera. Every attempt to break you became a breadcrumb trail of divine evidence. The lies he spread are now being revisited, not as gossip, but as proof of the warfare you endured with grace. The messages, the meetings, the alliances, all of it is resurfacing, not to shame you, but to showcase how much was done behind the scenes to stop something unstoppable. God has a way of turning humiliation into documentation, transforming mockery into historical record. You didn't need to defend yourself because time became your courtroom and truth became your lawyer. He thought your silence meant defeat, but silence was your strategy. While he performed, you preserved. And preservation always wins over performance. Now, as the dust settles, every insult he threw is being replayed with context, and that context exposes him. The things he said to discredit you are now the very things people use to recognize your authenticity. Because when someone keeps trying to ruin what doesn't belong to them, eventually the world asks, "Why are you so obsessed?" His biggest mistake wasn't what he said about you, it was how loudly he said it. He broadcasted his envy to the very audience that once admired him. And the irony is painful. The more he tried to erase you, the more visible you became. Every false narrative only made your truth more magnetic. Every attempt to isolate you made your presence unavoidable. He became the author of his own undoing, writing chapters of downfall with every word meant to harm you. In trying to bury your reputation, he buried his own. You were never his embarrassment. You were his mirror. And when truth stands too close to deception, it always exposes what's hiding behind the mask. Number 13. He's not just falling apart. His protection contracts are expiring. For a long time, he operated under the illusion that money, status, and connections could make him untouchable. He moved through life like someone who had insurance against consequence. Like every wrong move would be covered by someone in a higher seat, a hidden favor or a bought silence. But when divine patience runs out, those invisible contracts start to crumble. Heaven doesn't always strike first. Sometimes it just stops covering what it once tolerated. He built his empire on borrowed grace, confusing delay with approval. God allowed him to rise, not because he was chosen, but because exposure requires height. And now that his season of mercy has expired, the same people who once defended him are quietly backing away. Those who used to shield his image are losing power, credibility, or courage. His lawyers are stuttering, his allies are vanishing, and his name no longer opens the doors it once did. That's how divine judgment operates. It doesn't need to send a storm when it can simply withdraw favor. Every cover he paid for is evaporating. The influencers he bought, the politicians he bribed, the friends he flattered, all realizing the spiritual contract protecting him has been revoked. Heaven doesn't warn twice when it's done waiting. It just lets gravity handle the rest. His downfall isn't just financial or social, it's cosmic. He's losing the unseen permission he once had to operate in deception. What used to work now backfires. What used to hide him now highlights him. The fall looks like chaos, but it's actually order restoring itself. Those who once stood by him aren't leaving out of morality, they're leaving out of survival. They can feel that the energy around him has shifted, protection has turned into exposure, and every relationship he once weaponized is now recoiling, as if the entire spiritual ecosystem has recognized. Contract terminated. He thought he had immunity, but it turns out he only had time, and that time just expired. The same universe that once tolerated his manipulation is now collecting its debt. When heaven revokes a license, no lawyer, no connection, no bribe can renew it. What he built on deceit is now being repossessed by truth, one crumbling layer at a time. Number 14. His downfall isn't about revenge. It's about balance being restored. For too long, the scales were tilted in his favor. Not because he was right, but because corruption was louder. He used power like a weapon and influence like camouflage, believing the world would never catch up to his deceit. But divine order isn't blind, it's patient. It waits until every lie has run out of air before it breathes truth back into the atmosphere. What's happening to him now isn't retribution, it's correction. The universe is simply removing what no longer aligns with justice. Your name had to be freed. Your path had to be reopened. His exposure isn't just about him being brought low, it's about you being unchained. When someone blocks what heaven has ordained, it's not a matter of if the truth will surface. It's only a matter of when. And when that time comes, the revelation isn't to humiliate, it's to restore order. The light isn't trying to destroy him, it's just reclaiming the space he occupied dishonestly. Balance demands that every false elevation be adjusted until everything stands where it rightfully belongs. He thought he could bury you under confusion, but divine justice doesn't leave the innocent buried for long. Every lie he told, every manipulation he set in motion, every gate he locked in your face, all of it became the very weight that pulled him down. Because truth doesn't need to chase lies, it just waits for them to collapse under their own contradictions. What looks like punishment from the outside is actually purification. It's the system of the Spirit flushing out what doesn't belong so that peace can reign again. This is not karma in the human sense. It's divine mathematics. Every imbalance eventually demands equilibrium. Every false accusation, every stolen opportunity, every deceptive move must be balanced out by truth. And when that balance begins, it's not angry, it's inevitable. His fall isn't a spectacle, it's a signal. It's proof that corruption can only counterfeit destiny for so long before the real order reclaims its place. You didn't win because he fell, you won because truth stood up. And now that balance is restored, the noise that once overshadowed you has been silenced by justice itself. What was hidden has been revealed, and what was stolen is finally returning to its rightful owner. When the smoke clears and every mask falls, one truth always remains: divine order never loses track of itself. What looked like chaos was actually calibration. What seemed unfair was heaven adjusting the scales behind the scenes. His wealth, his titles, his network, none of it could override a divine decree. He tried to block your path, but ended up proving you were chosen. He tried to silence your voice, but his attacks became the echo chambers of your truth. He thought he was dismantling your progress, but every scheme became the documentation of his downfall. Now the story is coming full circle. The same system that once enabled him is now disowning him. The same mouths that defended him are now testifying against him. That's the beauty of divine exposure. It doesn't just remove people, it removes illusion. It separates the counterfeit from the authentic. And in that separation, everything hidden becomes visible. You didn't just survive his betrayal, you outlived his narrative. Because truth doesn't rush. It matures in silence until the lie rots on its own. This was never about revenge. It was about balance being restored. The universe isn't punishing him. It's protecting the timeline of those who were wronged. God let him play Pharaoh, but when the waters closed, it wasn't anger. It was order. The season of distortion is over. The chosen are stepping back into alignment, and those who built empires on manipulation are facing the natural consequence of collapse. No curse, no spell, just cause and effect returning home. And now, as the dust settles, understand this: your rise wasn't delayed, it was preserved. Every blocked path became a detour to greater ground. Every false gatekeeper was unknowingly building the stage for your unveiling. You are the evidence that light doesn't lose. It just waits for the darkness to finish burning itself out. Your story will remind many that divine timing never fails, that exposure is not destruction but correction, and that no power on earth can cancel what heaven has already written. So hold your head high, not in pride, but in quiet gratitude that truth stood the test of manipulation, and won without you needing to lift a sword. If this message spoke to your spirit, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep spreading truth, strength, and divine insight to every chosen soul awakening in this season. Your support helps this message reach those still trapped in the storm. Stay grounded, stay guarded, and stay guided, because your story is still unfolding, and it's only getting more powerful from here. God bless you.